Should the Indianapolis Colts break the bank for Daniel Jones this offseason? Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Colts podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the number one sports podcast network around. Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd at HorseshoeHuddle.com, and I'm joined today by Shawn Syed of Sumer Sports, one of my favorite go-to analytics sites out there. And if you guys are a big fan of Sumer Sports like I am, Sumer Sports is set to launch the Evaluation Draft Show on their YouTube show that will blend data and analytics along with interviews with NFL greats. So follow WWE star Big E. He'll host, and the show is set to run for 10 weeks. So definitely check that out. I know I'm going to be checking that out for sure during the draft season. But we have Shawn today to take a break away from the Super Bowl. Instead of these two teams that have been great all year and about to face off on Sunday, he wanted to take a little break to talk about the Indianapolis Colts, some Daniel Jones, some defense with Lou Anarumo. So, Shawn, I appreciate you taking the break away from your busy week here to talk about a team that had Super Bowl aspirations at the trade deadline, but then lost 7 down the stretch to finish the year missing the playoffs again.
Zach, I'm excited. I don't need to talk about JSN anymore. I don't need to talk about the Patriots' defensive line. No, Daniel Jones. Let's talk about it. It's going to be such an important thing to look forward to this offseason.
Yeah, no, and I think this coincided perfectly because I was preparing just kind of, an offseason video talking about Daniel Jones and just the pros and cons, how he performed this past season. I used a lot of things on your guys' site for getting my numbers to go with that. And on paper, like analytics wise, it seems like Jones had a very strong year for the Colts this past season. I mean, ranking top 5 in EPA per play overall in terms of under pressure was rated pretty high as well and performed fairly well in a lot of metrics. But how did you guys view this season from Daniel Jones, obviously prior to that devastating injury late in the year?
Yeah, I think you can't just say, okay, Jones played like a top 5 quarterback by EPA. Like that can't ever be the end of the evaluation. I know that's not what you're saying either, but we should acknowledge that you had a very, very productive offense with Daniel Jones there. Now, how much of it was driven by Daniel Jones? I do think parts of it in terms of some of the deep ball accuracy was pretty impressive for me. I do think he's effective off play action. We think back to when Jones was with the Giants in the year that they made the playoffs. Brian Daboll, hey, we're going to move the pocket. We're going to make Jones' life a little bit easier. So I do think you can, when you have a positive situation around Jones, like you did, you can win a bunch of games. Obviously, after the injury, you're not able to move as much. We saw that Chiefs game where things get to be really difficult. And I think there is a realistic maybe ceiling overall for Jones in this offense. I do love, though, I really enjoy Shawn Syed as a play caller, as a play designer. I think that the Eagles would wish to be able to have him back. That's something that Eagles fans are always telling me about. I'm curious if you're able to retain Alec Pierce. You have a strong receiving core. You have obviously a running back that you really trust. You have multiple parts along the offensive line that you should be extremely happy. Tyler Warren has that chest piece. So it feels like, hey, I've just talked about 10 other guys that I feel really good about. And because of that, I think it just raises the floor of what you have for a Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and I think that was the big part of the equation last year was we knew this Colts offense was talented. Even with Anthony Richardson, they were still getting 7, 8, 9 wins with Richardson, with Joe Flacco, with Gardner Minshew the year before that. So it was all about how can you raise that floor even more with a capable NFL quarterback. And Jones felt like kind of that missing piece in a sense. And I'm curious how you guys kind of view that, where I'm not trying to make this one-to-one comparison because we have multiple years of these other guys, but how quarterbacks have performed in like the Kyle Shanahan offense or Jared Goff in Detroit, for instance, like that type of tier of quarterback where we know they're not Josh Allen, but they can be this like beneficiary of a good offense, but still not be like a deterrent to their offense at all.
Yeah, the way that I think about it, it feels like there are a lot of quarterbacks in that kind of tier. Like, we want to have good audio and good visual. We need things that support us too, right? I think similar for that quarterback spot where, to call Daniel Jones, even though he performed like his numbers were like getting close to kind of MVP levels, I'm not going to put him in that tier. I do like that comparison. And it's funny because, of course, Steichen is going to run a quite a bit different offense than Shanahan. But I think Steichen he's the rare one that really understands like this kind of power spread type of offense he's able to actually create real run-pass conflict, where the Eagles weren't able to do that last year. Sorry to bring up the Eagles again, just thinking about Steichen with them. But I think because of that, Zach, I get so afraid of quarterback purgatory. It just scares me. Like right. What do you do? I assume that you probably don't feel great about having Anthony Richardson in that spot. I mean, do you want to trade for Tua? Do you want to trade for Kyler Murray? Like, how much more of a ceiling are you going to get? Where not that you're necessarily able to get a hometown discount, but where I do think Sam Darnold has certainly ascended above the level of where Daniel Jones is. Maybe that's your team building process where we have a quarterback that, hey, it's not the $60 million guy, but if you have that guy that's 30 and then we have expensive pieces elsewhere, maybe you get that defense to rise up as well. And now, hey, we're going to be a competitive team in a conference that you should be able to win.
Yeah, no, I love that comparison. We'll talk more about this Colts defense in segment 2 and how the Colts can build up that defense to be kind of this Seattle mold here. But keeping with the Colts offense, you mentioned Shane Steichen, how he comes from that Philadelphia tree where, with Jalen Hurts, they were running these, they were at the forefront of the RPO trend in the NFL, right? All the RPOs, everything out of the gun and barely under center. We saw with Gardner Minshew a couple years ago, they were like 92% in the gun with Minshew. Daniel Jones comes in here and they kind of changed their offense a good bit. Like, I'm not saying that they became Shanahan or they became Ben Johnson, but they definitely started to lean into that a little bit more, which I want to give you the floor to kind of speak on this too. But like, to me, that kind of speaks to Shane Steichen as a play caller as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because when you have a running back like Jonathan Taylor, who, look, he can run from the gun, but when you're running outside zone, when you're running it specifically, I feel like to that left side, he's able to kind of get that foot in the ground, get upfield really quick. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is Steichen growing and continuing to grow, because whatever your offensive structures are, it is, hey, these are my players, and these are what the players are really good at. So I think that Steichen does a really good job with that stuff, specifically to make his offensive line's life just a little bit easier. It feels like that is the name of the game, right? Like, we don't want to have situations where you're dropping back to pass 40, 50 times. Now, the Colts offensive line maybe be able to deal with that. But if you're making their life a little bit easier, that just helps your offense so much.
Yeah, no, especially when we're looking at this Colts offensive line, like going into next year, they might have 3 rookie contract guys starting with Gonzalez, Bortolini, and Jalen Travis potentially starting at right tackle. You got to make life as easy as possible, making sure your dropbacks are in the 20s, maybe instead of being in the 30s and 40s, and especially true dropbacks. With the uses of play action under center, you can really limit the true dropbacks you have, so defenses aren't just teeing off, especially in a division with Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, Jeffrey Simmons. Yeah. I mean, those were 3 of like the 10 best pass rushers in football this past year, probably.
Yeah, it's a stressful situation to think. Like, when I get excited to think about the Texans defense, I'm sure it stresses everyone else not thinking about it, because you got to face it twice a year, that they can just play you kind of straight up over and over, and they can just beat you on the edge. It feels like every single snap. So I'm glad that Steichen, I think he has a clear understanding of how to mitigate. Like, I think about it, you need to make your quarterback's life easy. You need to make your offensive line's life easy. Not everyone can do that from these sort of different systems, because Steichen is not running that full-on kind of Shanahan type stuff, but you can still get to that in different ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And while we're talking offense here, the big question on everyone's mind is Alec Pierce this offseason. We know how market can drive up contracts, and a guy who's only had one 1,000-yard season in his career, and it kind of came with this monster game against the Texans backups in Week 18 that got him to that 1,000 yards. We could see this number get into like the mid-20 millions per year. But he is a pretty good player. Like, what are your kind of overall thoughts on like Pierce as a player? I know he just did something that Deshaun Jackson was the last receiver to do, like under 50 receptions to hit 1,000 yards. Great deep threat, but like, what do you think of Alec Pierce and potential contract for him?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, his price is going to get driven up, because it feels like every single person I talk to, they're like, oh yeah, we're just going to add Alec Pierce to our team. He's going to be a free agent, and we're going to be able to build around that. It's like, well, like, let's let Indianapolis make the first offer here. I do think, though, of course, you look at Pierce as a deep type threat. I do think he has more to his game than that. And I think you see that a little bit on some of those kind of deeper outbreaking routes. I think he can run across the field a little bit too. So I would love Indianapolis to be able to resign him, just because it feels like, hey, you have this kind of piece where you have like multiple receivers that are really able to play at all 3 levels. And I mean, Zach, do we need to start a bake sale? Like, the salary cap is rising, so you're hopefully able to kind of fit that there. And it feels like if you have that young talent on the offensive line, that's a cheat code. Like, that is huge. That quarterback on that, maybe that mid-level-ish contract that can also be a building block that now allows you to say, okay, we're going to sign Pierce. Maybe this number looks high. We're going to front load it a little bit. It's going to give us some cap relief down the road.
Yeah, and another part of that equation, which we won't get to in too much here, but Michael Pittman Jr. due to make $29 million against the salary cap this year. Only $5 million of that is guaranteed. There's a potential way to move that contract and, open up some space for Pierce. And real quick, I mean, who do you think is more valuable going forward for the Colts, 25-year-old Pierce or 28-year-old, 29-year-old Michael Pittman Jr.?
It feels to me like Pittman, but that may just be me being anchored into how I kind of rank them. Not that you can build an entire offense, I think, around Pittman, but I do think he does more overall. I'm thinking of some of those in-breaking routes at that kind of 15-yard range where Pittman can really, really eat. I feel like I still lean towards Pittman right now.
Awesome. Coming up, guys, though, we're going to talk about the defense, how this Colts defense took a step forward this past year. But if you want to succeed with this brand of team building, the step forward needs to be in that top 10 range, not in that middle of the road. We're going to talk about them in just a second.
It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game that everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, then bet just $5 and you're going to get $200 back in bonus bets if you win. So make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. It's called for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Finding a doctor that you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. Let's be real. Sure, you want someone who's in-network, nearby, and has availability, but you also want a doctor who listens, makes you feel comfortable, and explains things clearly. That kind of doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so that you can find someone you love without all the hassle. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering over 200 specialties from primary care and dentistry to dermatology and eye care. I'll admit it, I definitely put off going to doctor's appointments longer than I should. I usually, you're supposed to go every year, but maybe you reschedule or don't reschedule at all, and it just goes on too long. You kind of blame the fact that it's not very convenient. But between work life and everything else, it's easy to delay all that stuff. But ZocDoc makes the process very simple, though. You could search by specialty or symptom and actually build a care team that works for you. You can see real-time availability and book instantly. No phone calls, no waiting on hold. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a doctor that you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message.
Alrighty, Locked On Colts Everydayers, we are back. Shawn Syed of Sumer Sports is joining us to talk all about this Colts team from 2025. We talked Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce, Shane Steichen. Now let's get to the defense. And the Colts made the big change to go from, the whole time under Chris Ballard, right? They're under Matt Eberflus's defense and Gus Bradley's defense, which is that cover 2 and Seattle cover 3, very static defenses, relics of the past in a lot of ways, not really what the rest of the NFL is doing. Shane Steichen takes over and says, no, I'm getting a more aggressive defensive coach. They get Lou Anarumo in here. Their blitz rate skyrockets to one of the highest in the league. Part of that's because they didn't have any corners. They need to get pressure, or not any corners and not any pass rushers, so they had to get more pressure. But Lou gets them more middle of the road defense. So Shawn, what did you see from the Colts defense this past season? And do you think that with a couple more pieces, they had the potential to be better, or this is kind of where the ceiling is right now?
Yeah, I have a big heart for Nick Cross. I just feel like his versatility. I understand he's not the best player in the league by any means, but how Lou can use him kind of in a few different ways, I think that is a fun thing to watch on a week-to-week basis. Can't mind him. I think one, celebrations, as we all know. they're great, but it does feel like he's a player that really, like, he's meant for the modern NFL to me. Like, a lot of defensive coordinators would love to have him at safety, where we saw it with the Vikings, where he has so much flexibility. I think he understands what you want to do as a kind of more too high coverage type looks overall. And then, of course, we talk about you get Sauce Gardner in there. You love the idea of it as it happens. We need him healthy. Like, you really have to be able to have him healthy. I think, of course, with Ward on the outside, that's another situation where on paper, if everyone's healthy, I do really like, because you talk about the pass rush a little bit. I mean, I like where Latu's growth is. I understand, hey, maybe he doesn't feel like a number one, like top, like tier A edge rusher with guys like Garrett Parsons, for example. But I do think you can build a pass rush plan around him. I do think, on the inside, you get a little bit more of a boost. So I think they have a higher ceiling than what they've shown. It doesn't feel like the offense to me showed for a few weeks, we're a top 3 unit. Like, that feels like the ceiling. I still think, though, the defense where you have Lou that is able to continue to build things. And you saw in Cincinnati where when he kind of lost some of those guys that he was comfortable with, that could communicate his system, things really dropped off. And so you're hoping, hey, we can build on this from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious on your thoughts with this kind of evolution we're seeing in NFL defenses. Like, we are seeing this Ravens system take over the NFL, and it's kind of topical, right? Because you're there covering the Super Bowl and the Seattle Seahawks, right? That Mike McDonald system that has, getting no base defense basically because they have Nick Emmanwori that's down there in the box, right? They don't have to play any base defense essentially. But like, this kind of defense is taking over the league. What are your kind of thoughts though on like the differences, I guess, between like, we still have the Robert Salehs, we still have the Burks in Houston, where they like that staticky kind of old cover 3 style, but we are seeing more teams lean into the style that Lou Anarumo incorporates, which is disguise, changing up coverages, and making that picture as muddy as possible.
Yeah, I think the ideal way that a defensive coordinator probably wants to live is 4 rushers. Like, if all of us can get pressure on every single play without a blitz, that is fantastic. Like, talking to some of the Seahawks coaches, talking to some of the Seahawks players this week, they say, you know what, that we take pride in that we are going to win up front over and over. But I do think that not every team has 4 just killers up front. So we need to send someone from the second level while keeping those 7 in coverage. And that is such an important thing that I think Lou understands and is able to show kind of over and over. So in the modern NFL, where quarterbacks' reads are not that they're made easier, but you have this progression passing of 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, I think the muddier that you can make it, maybe, you can make them feel there's a little bit uneasy in the pocket. And every tap that they have on the ball, they're holding on to it just a tick longer. That's going to help out our defensive line. If you don't have that four dominant front over and over, you hopefully can have mix-ins up on the back end that your coverage is able to kind of take out that quarterback spot.
Yeah, no, and especially when you have a Sauce Gardner on the back end, you potentially can bring back Nick Cross. Cameron Bynum is back there. Like, if Moody Ward comes back, we don't know if he's going to come back at this point, but if he doesn't retire, like, you have the guys on the back end, and that helps, the ability to bring more guys, the ability to disguise and change things up front. But the big question for Colts fans, I guess, all offseason really is how to upgrade this pass rush. Because like you mentioned, Latu, I think that there's a good trajectory there. Like, if you look at everything past just the surface numbers, everything took a big step forward in year 2, and it's trending towards a bigger step forward in year 3. But that's one of 4 guys. DeForest Buckner is coming off a major neck injury. We don't know what he's going to look like this next year. Saw some flashes from Adetomiwa Adebawore, but probably not enough to where you go, like, that's our guy. And the only other edge rusher under contract is JT Tuimoloau, who barely played this past season. So, I don't know how much you're into the draft or this upcoming free agency, but are there avenues to kind of improve this edge rush for the Colts this year?
I mean, I know that you certainly hope so, right? It's
right,
tough because
right.
Like the edge group, us, like, that's a premium position. Really, interior defensive line feels like it's a premium position as well now. So you're gonna have to take that spot early in the draft. And I mean, we talk about Alec Pierce's free agency. It feels like every season there's just like fewer and fewer free agents because teams are smart and they understand, like, hey, this is a big money guy. We're just gonna have to re-sign him early. So it does, give you a little bit of pause, just kind of what you're kind of seeing from it. But I mean, we have our draft guide out. You can look at just pressure numbers of different players. Like, hey, the Colts, I'm sure, will take a flyer in round 3. You're hopefully able to get an athletic guy that you can kind of put on that edge spot. I do agree with you though with Latu, where like you definitely see it in spurts, right? Like, you see it a little bit, you're hoping that kind of builds on, and I guess you're hoping that one day you can kind of build that whole rush around him.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's kind of an interesting player because I don't know if he has like that pure, like, gamer ability yet where he's like beating one-on-one tackles, right? And like creating this constant pressure. But he almost has this like Andrew Van Ginkel type of style of play where he gets these pass breakups. The 3 interceptions this past year.
Oh my gosh. Right? Oh my God. He went against 2, I think. Remember? Yeah. Like that's a good sign. Like Anarumo trusts him to put a lot on his plate. A smart player where you're able to kind of drop back in that coverage. I like Latu, when you see him win inside, like that always feels really good. I do think on a consistent basis, like you're hopefully able to get to that point, like we're beating tackles to the edge over and over. But I do think he's a guy where it feels like, hey, I'm going to set up a lot of my moves kind of early on, and then I'm going to take that inside move when, you're down by 7, it's third quarter. Like I really need to kind of stop you on that third down.
Yeah, no, definitely. If we look at the Colts defense this past year, just to kind of close up this conversation, again, more middle of the road EPA per play. Like most stats kind of say middle of the road for this defense overall. They didn't play the best quarterbacks, but they played starting quarterbacks all year, so there are some good pros and cons there. But what are we seeing from like these top 10 defenses? Is there really like one way that we are seeing top 10 defenses succeed league wide? And is like how can we get the Colts there? I guess. But what is like the one consistent thing that we're seeing from these top 10 defenses?
I mean, when I look at the Texans and the Seahawks, it's like they just have 4 absolute maulers up front. Like, Zach, I wish it was more fun and more complicated. Like, it's such a bummer that like it feels like you need to have 4, but really more than that, because Seattle is rotating guys out constantly. Like even seeing New England, like they're here. I don't think they're here necessarily because of their defense, but they're going to have multiple guys that they're able to rotate. So in April when the Colts draft, like if they draft 4 defensive linemen, put a thumbs up. Like it has to be a full rotation. Like guys aren't taking 60 snaps every single game and able to kind of have that full motor the entire way. Having 4, having 6, having like feels like 8 guys sometimes. So like to me, I think a 1-of-1 on a consistent basis. I wish it didn't, but it really feels like it starts and ends with that defensive line.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Even though you mentioned Houston there, right? Like Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter are just these superhuman players. But we're seeing what Barnett was rotating into. Winters was getting in there, and they were getting
inside front too.
Yeah, and they were getting those early down snaps, and then you get Will Anderson getting out there on third down, and it's just game over there. I think it was the game against Buffalo. I saw them do that quite a bit. So yeah, it's about rushing in phases and having multiple guys. And as of right now, the Colts have 2 edge rushers under contract going into next season. So we shall see what they can do.
They'll have more by the middle of the summer, right?
Right. They'll get one of us signed under contract. If not, we'll definitely throw it on the line. But Shawn, I appreciate you joining us today, talking all about this Colts team. Have fun here at the Super Bowl. Are you pulling for either team in this game, or are you just kind of there as for the spectacle?
Yeah, just pulling for fun. I just want it to be a good quality football game. Like that's the only thing that matters to me. Give me some good tape. I know you love grinding that too. And just give us some fun stuff to talk about as we get through this offseason.
Awesome, man. Thanks for joining, Shawn.
If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but maybe wasn't the right fit, then you know how important it is to actually nail that hire. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best matches for your role, and that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. So spend more time interviewing candidates who actually check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to give your job the premium placement that it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying that you heard about us on Indeed. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there's got to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades that you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, You're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. I love how simple Quo makes everything. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal, and it works from your phone or your computer. You can even keep your existing number. Plus, Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps, so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off of your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers.
Alrighty, Locked On Colts Everydayers, we are back with one final segment before we close out today's show. And I kind of wanted to build off that conversation with Shawn. And again, great shout out to Shawn for joining us today. Some excellent analysis there from Sumer Sports. And I always love talking to guys from Sumer Sports. They know their stuff. They really blend analytics and film study very, very well over at that site. But I kind of wanted to build off that conversation and talk about this Colts team in relation to these two teams in the Super Bowl, and talk about how I don't think the Colts are that far away, but also the margin for error is just so thin when it comes to the NFL. I mean, you look at these two teams, and they've been two of the healthiest teams in football this entire season. That is a major aspect of all this. And when you look at the Colts, their quarterback tore his Achilles late in the season. That's obviously a big one. Mooney Ward missing most of the year. Sauce Gardner missing a lot of time. So staying healthy is going to be a big part of the future success for the Colts. But if we specifically look at the way that this Colts team wants to win, how they are building this thing for the present and for the near future, it is a lot like that Seattle Seahawks mold. It is a lot like the Detroit Lions mold, like the San Francisco 49ers mold, where we have an offense with a distributor at quarterback who can get the job done with what we need him to do. We have talented offense around him. The one last step that you really need with all that is a top 10 defense. We see that with the Seahawks getting to the Super Bowl this year. We saw it in the best years of Detroit with Aaron Glenn when they had a very good defense there when healthy. With the 49ers, when Robert Saleh was there a couple years ago, they were getting to the Super Bowl. D'Amico Ryans was their defensive coordinator as well. They were able to get to the Super Bowl with a very good defense. Like we had those superstars that they had on that side of the ball. So for the Colts to take this next step, obviously step one is getting Daniel Jones back, getting him back in the fold, and making sure that last year wasn't a fluke. I think a lot of the advanced stats say that it wasn't. Part of it is the environment he was in this offense, but also Daniel Jones played some good football for the Colts, and I think he can sustain that as long as he can get back right from this Achilles injury. So the first step is just getting him back on the field, getting him back under contract, and hoping that last year was not a fluke. But then it's about upgrading this defense. As Shawn said at the end there, what's the #1 thing that we see with these top 10 defenses? A consistent pass rush, the ability to win with 4. And as of right now, we don't even know if the Colts have 2 or 3 guys that can even be out there on the field on third down. So the Colts' entire emphasis this offseason needs to be continuing to bolster that front 7, get as many bodies, young, old, whatever it is that can bolster that front 7 to take them from this middling defense. Again, the EPA per play, they were more middle of the road. Can they get into that top 10 range? We see with the Seahawks, the second-ranked defense in EPA per play. We see with the Patriots, they weren't as high in EPA per play, but they had the elite offense on the other side, which kind of carried them as well. I don't think the Colts are going to have that consistent, like MVP-level offense, so the defense needs to be this way that can carry them throughout the tough games, especially late in the season. So it's about just continually bolstering that defensive line, bolstering that edge group, and getting them where they need to go at the end of the day. And that's kind of what we alluded to at the end there with Sam. There are some good players on this defense. I think Laiatu Latu is on the right path for where you need him to be. I think they have some good pieces in the secondary. If they can get Nick Cross back, hopefully under $10 million per year, that would be a big boost to the defense. Getting Sauce Gardner back healthy, getting Cameron Bynum back. Hopefully DeForest Buckner can give them some boost on pass rushing downs. They have talent on defense, but it's about continually getting better as a pass rushing team and also getting another linebacker in here as well. But again, if we look at how the Colts performed last year, Daniel Jones was a very good quarterback for most of his starts. The Colts were having a historically great offense. I don't think that's fluky. They played 4 top 10 defenses in that stretch, and they performed very well. They had 3 games with positive EPA. They had only 1 game with a negative EPA, and that was one against the Rams that they nearly won still. So I do think there are a lot of pieces in place for this Colts team, but the margin for error is, again, just so small. If you have 1 or 2 major injuries that the Seahawks and Patriots were able to avoid this year, that can throw a wrench in all the plans. If you miss on a pass rusher here or there, you have a bad draft like the Colts have had at times, that can really just disrupt the young players on the roster and the ability to rush the passer on defense. So the Colts need to be perfect these next couple years to really capitalize on this potential window that they are building. And that's how hard it is to win in this league, is kind of showing all that right there. But I think there is an avenue for this Colts team. All that to say, I think there is an avenue for this Colts team. We saw them take the Seattle Seahawks team to the wire late in the season with Phillip Rivers as their quarterback. Like that's a team that's going to be playing this Sunday in the biggest game of the season. The Colts did exchange punches with them and play a good football game against them. So I do think this Colts team can be in this discussion going forward. They just really need to nail this offseason, revamp the entire edge rush room, get younger, get faster, get more effective off the edge, get Daniel Jones back healthy and under contract, and roll from there. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. And again, big shout out to Shawn Syed of Sumer Sports for joining the show and talking all things Indianapolis Colts. Thanks again, though, for tuning in to Locked On Colts today. We'll be back again tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Colts so you get all the latest episodes. If you don't already, follow at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, at ZachHicks2, all on socials. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Colts ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedoncolts.supercast.com to join the club. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys back here again tomorrow afternoon.